son is racing.
Welcome, race fans, to another episode of the Rubbin' is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. We have all your action from Long Pond, Pennsylvania for the Pennsylvania 400 at Pocono Raceway. With the track breakdown, Liehr, give us that good track action this weekend.
What's going on, everybody? Glad to be back. Another week of fantasy NASCAR. Hope our buddy Adrian's having a good time while he's off here. But coming from you from the Pennsylvania 400, Long Pond, Pennsylvania, Pocono is one of the biggest tracks that we have on the circuit. It's 2.5 miles in length, 160 laps to complete the race. This is a triangle-shaped track, also known as the Tricky Triangle. It's got asphalt surface with turn 1 being 14, turn 2 being 8 degrees, which is the tunnel turn, and turn 3, which is only 6 degrees. But in turn 2, it gets a little bumpy, so these guys can easily lose control in that turn there. But this race is really hard on the mechanics of these vehicles, because there's going to be a lot of downshifting. But also, because of that, due to the banking that they don't have here, like I said, it's just going to be a lot of shifting and a lot of hard on the mechanics as far as the brakes too. Starts and restarts here are going to be absolutely insane and crazy. I mean, we're talking like 6, 7 wide. Sometimes guys jostling for position. But strategy this week is going to be huge. As of last year, we know that the top 3 guys, Logano, Kyle Busch, and Truex, they all ran out of fuel in the last lap, giving the win to Matt Kenseth. So that's going to be huge this week. Also, depending on how many tires they want to take as well, because there's also a chance that there's not that many yellow flags that, cautions that we're going to, have a lot of green pit stops. So, but as far as that goes, this shifting, like I said, is unbelievable. This is one of the longest front stretches that we have on the circuit at 3,740 feet. Most airplane runways aren't that long, but interesting fact here about Pocono is that NASCAR only allows most teams to use 1 transmission per race that we have on the circuit. Here, there's an exception. They do allow them to have 2 just because of how hard this track is on the transmissions. But like I said, 160 laps to complete this race. So laps led, fastest laps will not be as big this week compared to other weeks. So there's obviously going to be more emphasis placed on place differential guys this week. So, but race is going to be Sunday, July 31st at 1:30 p.m. Eastern on NBCSN. Weather is going to be tricky this week, everybody. 71 degrees, scattered thunderstorms, 60% chance of precipitation with winds east-southeast at 9 miles an hour. So this race may possibly get rained out like it did in the springtime here, and they could see a race on Monday. So, but hopefully that doesn't happen, and we get to actually enjoy the race while we're not working.
Yeah, tricky weather at the Tricky Triangle. We've got a lot of fantasy analysis to get into this week. We're covering for Adrian since he's not here. It's time to get into the burning rubber picks, kids. Liehr?
Burning rubber, baby!
All right, Liehr, go ahead and give us your first burning rubber pick this week, buddy.
I mean, is there any doubt? I'm rolling out with the Bass Pro Shops, even though he's just in the Furniture Row vehicle this week with my orange paint in the background here in my room. But Martin Truex, baby, starting on the pole. Like last week, he was not the play, as I stated, which was the right, play last week, not to play him. But this week, it's a completely different animal. He is the man here at Pocono. And the biggest thing is he's on the pole this week. He's from New Jersey, which is close. He absolutely loves this track, the Tricky Triangle. Last year, like I said, between the 3 of them with Logano and Busch and him, I mean, he could easily swept last year's races here. But he has 21 starts here, 1 win, 3 top 5s, 7 top 10s. As Adrian would say, he was screaming down the straightaways in qualifying and should go straight to the front at the beginning of the race on Sunday and stay up there as well. Pitting will be crucial here, like I said, at Pocono with strategy, and him and Cole Pearn will work great together. Cole Pearn, hopefully make the right calls and they'll have the right strategy this week. And But, as far as his price here at DraftKings, I mean, he is one of the most expensive guys this week at $10,200. It's kind of been the common nomenclature as of late with Martin Truex, but he's going to be worth every penny this week.
Yeah, dude, I completely agree with you. Like, if this is going to be another one of these Truex dominating days that we've seen, and let's be honest, we've seen this several times out of the JGR cars and affiliated JGR car and Truex. They just dominate this race. They dominate races, and when they do, if you don't have them, you're drawing dead. It's even in GPPs. I think this is going to be that weekend where you have to be on Truex. I think practice 2 and happy hour practice will let us get a better glimpse of that if we get those practices in due to rain. But if that car goes out there and dominates in happy hour, even in one of the 2 practices we get it in, like, you should probably be on that car about 75 to 80% of your lineups, just from what we've seen how these JGR cars and the JGR affiliated car and Truex and Furniture Row Racing, how they do at these tracks. Like, it's just unreal. And I think that transitions me well into my first burning rubber pick, which should surprise no one. And I'll go ahead and flip into the M&M's Racing hat for you. And it's Rowdy Kyle Busch, guys, at $10,600. And price is going to be a problem this week. There's a lot of guys that you want to be on that are expensive. Listen, he qualified 16th. That and his price with his track history here will scare a lot of people off. I think this is a unique position for you to be able to get a driver of Kyle's caliber on a streak that Kyle's on and equipment that is just far above and beyond every other piece of equipment out there, other than his other teammates, right? And you're going to get it at the lowest ownership you can possibly get. The place differential here is just absolutely sexy. His teammates in Edwards at 9,700 and Hamlin at 9,100 qualified second and I believe 4th, right? And then we have Kenseth qualifying 9th at 9,800. Look, they're all fast, and it's lunacy, absolute lunacy, to think that Kyle Busch wouldn't be fast. I also want to point out that this is one of the final 2 races that are thorns in Kyle Busch's paw, right? He's already crossed every other track off with a win. I think he can do it this week at Pocono, and I think that the place differential will just crush people. I agree with Liehr, though. Look for Truex to lead laps early, amass a lot of points, but we've seen this before out of Truex. A pit stop mess up, or they get sent through the pits, and I expect Kyle Busch to be one of those few cars that I have this week that can actually do damage, gain the position, and win this race. Liehr, your thoughts, bud?
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, man, on the play there where you're talking about Martin Truex and Kyle Busch. It's really going to come down to those pit strategies and if they can avoid getting penalties, in the pit. Mm-hmm. But as far as Kyle Busch, I mean, like you said, he's definitely on a really, really good streak here as of late. And he's one of those guys that he is a streaky driver. I mean, he does go on these streaks, and then he goes on horrible streaks, and then he goes on great streaks, and then he goes on horrible streaks. Mm-hmm. I mean, just for example, he went a 3-week clip of -4, 0 points, and -26 points, and now he's on an uptrending trend of 90 points 2 weeks ago at New Hampshire and 107 points, just absolute domination last week. And that momentum is going to carry with him. And I think the 16th position for qualifying is a farce of what his car actually will produce on Sunday. So, even though his price is $10,600, he's going to be one of those guys that's going to give you the multiple different variances that you need with the place differential and possibility to win, because he was also one of the guys that could have won it last year. So Kyle Busch is definitely, if you're a multiplayer with multi-lineups, he's somebody you're going to have to purchase, I would say at least 50% of the time. But I'm definitely going to be on Kyle Busch right there with you, brother.
Yeah, I think it's just too sexy of a play to make this week, and a lot of people won't be on it because they won't understand that the reason why that car got out late in qualifying and wasn't able to compete in the second heat of qualifying is because they were failing inspection, because before practice they didn't have one of the lasers aligned properly, and then once they did get that laser aligned properly, Kyle Busch's car was failing inspection, so they had to quick fix it and get it out there. He's going to be set up the way the rest of his teammates are set up, and he's just going to run fast because that's what he does. And the M&M's car, I wouldn't be surprised to see it in victory lane this week. So Liehr.
Especially with that 75th anniversary on there.
Oh,
as well.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So Liehr, who's your second pick to burn some rubber this week, buddy?
My second burning rubber guy this week is somebody that, he's been very streaky as well, but he took it home this past 6 weeks ago at the Exalta We Paint Winners as well, 400. But I'm going with Kurt Busch in the number 41 Haas Automation. Him and his team have, like I said, been off of late, but he comes back to a track where he's very familiar with it. He has some success here. He is a past winner, like I said, this past spring's race, a couple weeks back. He qualified for Sunday's race in the 15th spot, so right next to his brother in the 15th. So he's also one of those guys that can definitely get you some place differential with his, historical data here. But he has 30 starts, 3 wins, which is second most of all active drivers, tied with Jimmy Johnson. And the most active wins would be Denny Hamlin with 4, but it's a special exemption this week with Jeff Gordon with 6, but he really doesn't count. But he's got 13 top 5s and 17 top 10s here. The best part about Kurt, this week is value. I mean, you're going to get him at a criminally low price of $8,900, starting from the 15th position. It's almost criminal to keep him under $9,000. I mean, he's definitely one of those guys that has potential to win, which he showed that, at the Exalta We Paint Winners. He can get laps led, he can get fastest laps, and he's going to have that place differential. So kind of that all under umbrella variations that you can get with one particular guy, and being under 9K. I mean, that's just a lot of positive variances for Kurt Busch this week. So I definitely like the Kurt Busch play, and he's going to be in quite a few of my lineups, I think, especially too if they, the weather comes into play like Sunday morning. I don't know, for some reason he just really likes racing on Mondays. So,
like the Kurt Busch pick, in my opinion, is smart for 2 reasons. He's way underpriced, and I think a lot of people are going to overlook him, and his track history here is pretty sexy for who he is and what you're getting at that price tag. The qualifying 15th, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the winning lineup this week paired both Busch brothers together and faded Truex. And if something happens to Truex, that gets it done that way. I think that's a legitimate contrarian lineup if you're trying to fade Truex. I actually really like to play. I'm not personally really heavy on it, but I totally understand where you're at, and I understand your logic behind it, and I think that's the important thing here. And like I said, he could win you a lot of money this week, so I will definitely increase my exposure to Kurt Busch. But right now, I'm just a little tentative on it. I think that transitions us fairly well because we're switching teams now, getting away from the JGR crews. And we'll go back to, we'll talk about what Adrian wanted me to talk about. I talked to him a little bit earlier, and he is all over Jimmy Johnson this week at 10,000 as a place differential play and as a play of a guy that has a chance to win this race. He also wanted me to talk a little bit about Jeff Gordon and value, so I'm just going to group all the Hendrick cars here together at one chunk, and we'll talk about it. So you've got Jimmy at 10, Gordon at 88, and Chase Elliott at 87. Right? Now, last week I was told that I need to think more outside the box by one of our viewers. So if you'll bear with me a little bit, I'm going to give you a little bit of thinking outside the box in a fun way, and then we'll go back to the Poppa speak. All right. So if you'll follow me, Chase Elliott qualified 8th this time and was running for a win here until he slipped up on the restart last time and ended up finishing 4th. Right? See, the 48 for Jimmy Johnson, right? And you can do the 88 for Jeff Gordon, right? And he's qualified 24th, which is the car Chase Elliott's in. It must be an omen if you go next level that there's some sort of NASCAR conspiracy with all these number similarities that the Hendrick cars are the play this week and will win you all the money. No. Actually, like the reason why the Hendrick cars are the play is, as I said earlier, place differential is huge this week. And these cars are capable of winning. And when you total Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson's wins here at this race, you get 10 wins out of the last 20 races on this track. That is absolutely absurd stat-wise to think about. I don't care if they're past their prime or not. When they're qualifying that low, they are place differential gold mines. Do not let their qualification of 21st and 24th let you slip by. And I'm not even necessarily afraid of Chase Elliott qualifying 8th. He's proven that he can run in the top 5 all year. It might be sneaky this week to stack Hendrick, even if you don't believe in the NASCAR Hendrick conspiracy. Liehr?
Wow, that was a tremendous breakdown there with crunching some numbers, some real good analytics there. No, I definitely agree with you. I mean, to get a Jimmy Johnson caliber driver along with Jeff Gordon starting 20th or later, you'd have to be an idiot not to at least sprinkle some of them in your lineups, even if it's not somebody that you're completely sold on. They do have the potential to, get that place differential and even get the win. Because, I mean, there's just anything can happen here at Pocono, whether it's, between wrecks and pit strategies and fuel. Anything is possible on this big track. So, but as far as those guys, the numbers historically speak for themselves. 6 wins for Jeff Gordon and 4 wins for Jimmy Johnson. The only thing is, I've had a hard time, as far as Jimmy Johnson. Maybe it's just because I got burned, but Jeff Gordon, he showed well last week. Almost 40 points, and at his salary, which was $8,800, that's almost getting more than between 4 and 5 times your money on your value there. But as far as Chase Elliott, the kid's been on fire all year. Anyways, I definitely do like the Jimmy Johnson play. Maybe not so much Jeff Gordon this week, but Chase Elliott, I will be sprinkling a little bit of him here and there. I'm just not as hard up on the Hendrick guys this week, but there's definitely, some value there. And like we said, anything could happen. So
I don't know, the 24th part, like him qualifying 24th and being all that, really, that's part of the Hendrick conspiracy theory. Like
I like it. I like it a lot.
All right, man. With that said, guys, I think it's time to transition into value. We gave you enough guys that you're going to have to pay up for this week. So let's try to find some guys to save you some money that'll help round out your lineups. Liehr, go ahead and give us the top value play for you this week, man.
By the way, before I do this real quick, that's kind of a little bit of a Rain Man-ish thing coming out of you there on our last talk about segment there. But going to your value plays this week, I'm going to roll with the number 34, Chris Buescher. It's a name that we don't really talk a lot about on this show, but it's definitely somebody that you need to start putting on your radar. He is the 2015 Xfinity Series champion. He's gaining valuable experience this year, being full-time on the Sprint Cup circuit, and is someone that you can grab for an insane value at only $5,400 this week. The 34 team has been doing well as of late. They've been qualifying very well, this being the second week in a row that they're starting from that 22nd spot. He is in his first Pocono race here under the Sprint Cup belt. He started 18th and finished 29th and ended up finishing with 12 fantasy points. But, it's one of those things where just even sometimes a positive place, point for you is somebody that, that's all you need is just some points, somebody just not to go negative. But with his cost, it's hard to find somebody with that much value and then speed in all-in-one driver. That 34 team, they're right there with some really good, names. The Jimmy Johnson, Casey Kane, Jeff Gordon. They're right there on the cusp, and anything can happen, like we talked about here at Pocono. So, but like I said, he doesn't really have to do much and just kind of finish where he's at to give you some value there. This could, like I said, be a total strategy of race and fuel, and he could easily get lucky and finish with the top 10 just because of a fuel issue with some of the other cars. But don't sleep on Buescher anymore. He's definitely one of those guys that until DraftKings starts increasing his price, is going to be somebody that you're going to need to look at every single week, depending on where he qualifies. And I know a lot of people will say, okay, he qualified too high, qualified 22nd. But last week, the guy that took down the big tournament, he had Chris Buescher in there starting from the 22nd spot, and he produced some in the 40s. So, you just never know what's going to happen.
Well, and remember, we were also on the Buescher play earlier in the year when he qualified well and practiced well and was running lights out until he got wrecked. Yes. And he was going to pay off then, too. I think I think that what you're seeing is you're seeing a driver in Busher ascending to the level of ascending to the level, performing to the level that he is as a driver finally. And I think they're finally starting to get that team a little bit more on the right page. And I think that he makes a great play, especially if you're looking to go after a lot of the value. We told you about a lot of the high-end drivers that have great place differential points that are expensive, along with Truex. If you're going to play them together, you're going to need to find a source of value, and Busher is just as good as any. And I think Liehr is exactly fair and right on the breakdown that it might be an overqualification, but in the past when he's done this, we've seen that he's actually a guy that you have to have on a lineup, because when he does this in the past, barring an accident, he puts up really good point performances. And at that salary, what it allows you to get up above him, it is what rounds out your lineup and makes it a GPP winner. So I love the Busher play this week. And another play that I absolutely love this week, and I'm going back to the well yet again, I'm telling you to play Greg Biffle again at 7,200. So I have to say, if anybody out there knows that he's going to wreck, please let me know so I can pull him off my lineups. But I don't think you can know when a guy's going to wreck or not. And the same arguments I've been making still apply to Greg Biffle. This is not a 26th place car. If you watched qualifying today, what happened is they went out, they made a run, they thought they were good. When they were getting close to being knocked out of the top grouping to advance to round 2, they sent Biffle back out. Well, the times started coming across that people weren't fast enough to knock Biffle off. So they called and they told Biffle to shut it down, save it for session 2. Then the last few cars came by and Biffle got left in the dust. Biffle was saying that he has a top 10 car. I'm in agreement with him. I think he's got a top 10 car this week. And at that place differential, if he's a top 10 car, even if he's a top 15 car, you are foolish, sir, to not play him. And he will be on every winning GPP lineup, barring a wreck. If that car is a top 15 car, you're just going to have him. The reason why I say this, guys, is because you've had to have him 3 of the last 4 weeks to take down a GPP. Liehr, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, man. We were all over him last week, and unfortunately, he went to the wall. But that kind of stuff happens. I mean, you really can't account for those kind of variations unless you have, information that nobody else is pervious to. It's one of those things where $7,200 for a guy that qualified, that high. I mean, you're not going to get much better than a guy with his experience. He's starting from the 25th position. He's got unbelievable amount of races under his belt, 27. I mean, he's one of the most experienced drivers on the Cup. And so basically, he's one of those guys, especially at the price point where he's qualifying and experiences here, that all those things are in his favor. As far as being, completely in on him, I'm not going to be 100% on, Biffle, but yeah, I mean, I'm going to have some decent exposure to him because he's just going to be one of those guys that has the potential that he could have a top 10 finish. And then you're going to have him. And with being at $7,200, it just makes it really easy to put him into lineups and get the big top dogs that, obviously cost the most money. But,
Right.
He does have a win here back in 2010. Historically, he has a lot better place differential from where he starts to where he finishes. So I have no qualms with him, at least getting 10 place differential spots, if not more. So I think he's definitely going to be a really good play for everybody this week.
Yeah, and I want to be clear with our viewers. When I say I'm all in on a guy for value, that means he's the majority of my value plays. It doesn't mean I'm running 100% of my lineups with him in it, right? They're value guys. These are guys that you should limit your exposure to, right? But at the same time, you're going to have to make decisions, and you're going to have to stick with those decisions. And I'm extremely comfortable playing the Biffle play this week. Liehr, who's your next driver, buddy, for some value? Save some more money.
Well, I'm going back to a little bit of the well. We've been talking about Miss Nature's Bakery, quite often lately. But I'm going to go back with Danica Patrick. Has once again qualified in a position to where she is a play, definitely a play this week. Her cost of being $6,100 and her equipment, being obviously with Stuart Haas, she is one of the pieces that you're probably going to need for your 50K salary to put in there at 6,100 to get somebody of her caliber and equipment. It's very affordable and makes it very doable to get optimal lineups. She can obviously, where she's starting at, get at least a top 15 finish. I'm going to put her probably between, depending on how everything goes with the second practices tomorrow and everything, but she could easily finish 10 to 15, 15 to 20, somewhere in there. But as long as she can get you that place differential, but with that 26 starting spot, I mean, it's hard for her not to get the place differential. So it makes it hard to fade her, at all. But historically, she's got 7 starts here, 0 top 10s. So not a lot of stats here for Danica. But she's been good, a good fantasy play in the last 3 weeks, in the last 3 races. So I'm looking forward to close the month of July out with another good point value this week. You had to have her a couple weeks ago at New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. And I know last week, she slipped down with a 24, but still, I think, when you look at her at that price of 6,100, it's too enticing not to play Danica this week.
Yeah, and once again, we've seen smokes cars pass, so we know that she's got legit equipment. It's just whether or not she can steer through the carnage that is Pocono and the tricky triangle and get up there. But she fits Poppa's rule of qualifying 24th or worse, so you can put her in consideration. I'm a big fan. She paid off for me last week on lineups that I had her on. As a good source of value, Danica, you really can't go wrong with Danica when she qualifies that low and that good of equipment. But her track history here is a little sketch, let's be honest. So, but
it's all going to be about her avoiding the wrecks and then also not getting any penalties or anything and falling behind, because if she falls behind, it's over.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I'm going to channel my inner Adrian here and give you a pick for our next value that should surprise no one. And that's Trevor Bayne at 6,400. He's too cheap, and he qualified 31st, which is just absurd. I know he's been a little off, but when Bayne is on, you really have to have him on your lineup. I see Bayne and Biffle soaring through the field and racking up a lot of fantasy points this week. This is a top 15 car, and it has been all season. I'm all aboard the Bayne train. Come on, ride the train and ride it. Liehr, your thoughts, buddy?
Oh, man. Obviously Adrian would be all over this because, the Bayne train is his boy. But, as far as that goes, Bayne has been I was, by the way, before I move any further, we had our little bout last week talking about Trevor Bayne. And unfortunately, I was right. All because Bayne, got a little bit prideful and tried to block Clint Boyer, so got in his way and made him finish 30th. So he did finish, later than he started. But all year he's been in contention to make it to the chase. He's currently sitting 18th right now in the standings. But when it comes to history, he doesn't have a ton of history here just because he's hasn't been racing that long. But he's got 3 races under his belt. No top 10s at all. But, he does have a nice last time, which was at the Exalta Winners, We Paint Winners. He started 24th and finished 13th. So, I think he's kind of like some of these other younger guys where the more experience he gets, the better he's going to get here. And Roush Fenway, it's very streaky, but, they've been doing well. So I think that, especially at his price point, is from a fantasy perspective, he's definitely a play this week at $6,400 and starting from that 31st position. Because honestly, there's no real other way for him to go unless one of those extenuating circumstances come into play with a wrecks or anything else. A pit disaster. Just something out of his control. But if everything is in his control, he definitely should pay out value. A lot. Right,
as long as he checks the ego and lets Boyer pass if Boyer's faster than him.
Yeah.
That cost me money last week. Oh, well. Anyways. Now it's time for the Going to the Garage segment, kids. And the Go to the Garage segment is most people's favorite because it allows us to talk trash on drivers. It could be because we don't like them at the track. It could be because we just don't like them. Could be because we don't like the equipment they're in. Could be because they're priced incorrectly on DraftKings, or we just don't like how they fare this weekend. Liehr, go ahead and talk some smack on a driver for us. Who's your first guy going to the garage?
All right, brother. Well, you know, I'm one of those guys. I like to pick somebody of stature. I don't like to go with the status quo and pick somebody is pretty much an obvious pick. But my guy this week is a local guy. I love him. He's such a great guy. But Cousin Carl, you know, we all know he's a fantastic driver, but he's even a better person if you ever get the chance to meet him. And he'll sit there and talk to you. And most of the drivers aren't like that. But kudos to him for, you know, being a driver that, you know, gives it back to the fans, that helps support, you know, the sport that he loves and we all love. But he and his team have been struggling kind of as of lately. Last week, you know, he got mixed up in that wreck. Was a negative 14 points. So anybody that had him last week obviously got burned by him. And I think some of that sentiment is going to, you know, go into this week. So he may not be that highly owned, but there's a reason. You know, he starts from the second spot. So obviously he did have a nice qualifying session today. But I have a hard, you know, will have a hard time leading laps and obtaining fastest laps this week. Because I just think that there's other cars out there like Truex and Kyle Busch, guys of that stature that are just going to come up through the field, and Truex is going to stay up front. And I think those guys are going to, and Kurt Busch, just come up and he's just not going to have a chance to gain any points of that nature from fastest laps or laps led. His cost is down a little bit at $9,700, and for him, you know, that's a little bit lower than what, you know, what he's been used to. But like I said, there are other drivers I would just rather spend my money on this week, let alone I think they're just going to be faster cars. But he has 23 starts here. He does have 2 wins. You know, we were talking about numbers and stuff before, but he's got 5 top 5s and 10 top 10s. His average start is 15.7 with an average finish of 14.7. So historically, he kind of basically finishes where he starts. But this week, he just qualified too high in that second spot. He is in JGR equipment, and obviously we all know how good they are as individual drivers and as a team. But he's just going to be one of those guys that I'm probably going to – I mean, obviously I'm going to have some exposure, but I'm going to be fading him for most of my lineups.
Yeah, I mean, and I understand why. I think if you want exposure to Carl, you're seeing a race vision where Carl is leading laps or capable of battling Truex, or you're seeing the Truex team fall off, right? Or you just are convinced that Cousin Carl can go 2 for 2 and lead some of those laps and pay off some points and be the fastest car at some point in time. Other than that, you would have zero reason to play Cousin Carl this week because literally those are the narratives that have to pan out in order for him to pay off his salary. I'm morally opposed to sending Cousin Carl to the garage because he's such a nice guy and such a great driver and such great equipment. But your analysis here is spot on, Liehr, and I don't have a problem with it.
I know he's your boy and everything.
Oh, yeah. I almost got up and got the autographed hat and put it on.
But you know, last week, I mean, like even myself, I called out my favorite driver, Truex Jr., and, you know, we were right. I mean, he only produced, you know, 4 times his salary. But this week, it's just one of those guys that even if he does, you know, let's say he gets a top 5, top 10 finish, just based off of where he finishes, he's still not going to make up to where his points are gonna get it for you to take home that GPP.
Right. He either has to win the race or has to lead laps, be the fastest car, and finish second. Right. Or maybe third, but to pay off his price tag. And if you don't have your race view doing that, then you shouldn't play him. And now Liehr went a little strong there with his recommendation for the going to the garage. And I'm going to do the same. We're not messing around, guys. I'm going to tell you that I'm sending all of the RCR cars, the Richard Childress Racing cars, to the garage this week. I think they all overqualified. And people will tell me I'm crazy because of how they fared in practice 1 and how they qualified. But most people don't know that they were the teams that were in qualifying trim more than any other team out there during practice 1. Heck, Paul Menard didn't run in regular race trim. He only ran in qualifying trim. And I know he's only 7,100, but he qualified third. That is over his average finish position at this track by about 15 spots. In his last 7 races here at Pocono, he's finished 30th, 32nd, 26th, 33rd, 31st, 11th, and 33rd. This practice time and the qualifying is a straight illusion. I just think you're way better off fading him this week. Newman at 7,700, qualified 5th. His average finish here is 17.8 in the last 5 races. He hasn't had a top 5 finish, kids, since he was driving for Stuart Haas. That's how long it's been. That literally tells you historically he cannot pay off where he qualified at. His last 3 races are a 39th, a 23rd, and a 12th. All will get you negative place differential and not enough points to matter and have you winning a GPP this weekend. I think it's even bad enough that it'll punish you in cash games. And Austin Dillon at 7,900, qualified 10th. He has an average finish here of 20th, and he doesn't even have a top 10 here ever. I think it's the easiest thing in the world this week to fade all these RCR cars. Now, I've already heard a lot of touts in the industry, and a lot of people are talking about how fast these cars are and how dialed in they are, but it seems to me that on every week when we see one of these RCR cars qualify up high, all they do is fall back. And I've been fooled by it too many times. What are your thoughts, Liehr?
I'm right there with you, man. I mean, to start with Austin Dillon, Austin Dillon, he's same thing. He average start is 10th, average finish is 20th. I mean, that's doubling his starting position. And it's just historically RCR qualifies really, really well here, and then just doesn't perform as well. So, when it comes to their price, a lot of them are going to be in that $7,000 range with, Austin Dillon being the most expensive. And then you've got Ryan Newman, who's just underneath him at 7,700. And then you have Paul Menard at 7,100. But there's absolutely no way you can play Paul Menard at starting from the 3rd spot. And it's even more difficult to, possibly play Newman at the 5th spot. I can't, even though if you went all 3 of them and you're looking at 21,000, 22,000, probably be more like 23,000 when you throw in the hundreds. But with those 3 guys, that gives you a lot to do with the rest of your line. But those guys aren't going to accumulate the points that you need them to do it, to pay off their price tag. I'm right there with you. I'm pretty much avoiding all the RCR guys this week because it's just I don't see it going in that type of scenario or situation where either any of them have a chance to win or that they have any chance to produce any points of getting higher than where they are starting. They all are just going to trend backwards based off of where they're starting at and their historical data here. But if you want to be bold and be contrarian, good luck to you. Right. It's just I'm not going to be one of those players that does that this week.
Yeah, no, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm going to light money on fire. But, these cars literally, in order for us to be wrong, have to perform better and be faster than they ever have at this track. And I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. But I think that wraps up the breakdown part of our show. Now it's time for us to to put together a lineup for you guys. And this is something we're really proud of here. We're putting together a lineup in the lug nut for this week. And we once again encourage you guys not to copy the lineup. We're just showing you the process of how to go through and put together a lineup appropriately. All right, guys. Liehr, where do we want to start this off? I think you're just going to tell me to plug Truex in, aren't you?
Boom.
All right. I don't have a problem doing that. Dynamite. Boom goes the dynamite with Truex. All right. Now, as we've talked about in the show so far, now you have an interesting problem. You can either spend up on any of these guys. Kyle Busch, we didn't mention him a whole lot in the show, but Harvick also underqualified. Jimmy Johnson underqualified. Any of those plays up there are very interesting for various reasons. Since we talked about it a little, and Adrian was also on it, let's go ahead and roll Jimmy Johnson for place differential with Truex.
I was going to say roll Kyle Busch, but
I mean, dude, you just want to roll all that, let's throw Jimmy off there and we'll roll Kyle Busch. That's cool. Yeah, we'll show exactly what you and I talked about in the show. So Truex and Busch. All right, where are you wanting to go next?
I think we need a little salary relief, so I think we should dip down a little bit here.
All
right. My pick for that, honestly, I want to put Danica in there.
You want to go ahead and put Danica on? All right.
Yeah.
All right, that bumps us back to 77. Like I said, dude, I am stone cold sold on Biffle's place differential this week. I'm throwing him on there, and that puts us up to 79. So basically what I'm seeing is we have room for another stud driver of any kind, and we can then spin down. We'll have to spin down. But you have 79.50 left. Well, let me ask you before you do this. Should we look at your Busher play and see what that frees up? And then
I definitely honestly, you know what I think we should do is put Trevor Bayne in.
All right. Let's just show them first what Busher frees up. Busher then gives you 10-5, which literally allows you to pick anyone.
Anybody.
Yeah. So if you're willing to put Busher on that lineup, you have your choice of any driver whatsoever. If you put Bayne on, you're going to be more limited, but not a whole lot. He's not that much more expensive. So let's go ahead and put Bayne on, since that's the direction Liehr wanted to go. That means I get to play with the $9,500 that's left over. I'll ask your opinion anyway. See, that the problem with that is it puts us in a weird range where we're going to have salary left over. I don't have a problem leaving salary left over, as we've seen time and time again that is what successful players do, winning lineups do. I think the right play here is between Kurt Busch and Jeff Gordon. And since we're doing the Kyle and the other guys from a distance, we're going to get more place differential out of Jeff Gordon with the track history. I don't know, man. I am torn. I kind of want to make a lineup of each of these.
Yeah, for me, honestly, if I had to choose between any of them there, I would go, obviously, Kurt Busch, but that's just my preference. But also, too, we didn't really talk about him that much. I mean, we had a little snippet of him. But Denny Hamlin, don't sleep on this guy, people. He's starting from that 4th spot, and he could easily, if he gets a run, he could get up there and lead some laps. And this guy's the active winning driver here at Pocono with 4 wins. So $9,100. Don't forget about Denny Hamlin, because he's going to be a guy that could possibly – having a dominating day. He really hasn't, he's been kind of, not been doing much of late, regardless of the track that we've been going to. He got off to that hot start with winning the Daytona 500 in 2016, but just really hasn't, done much from there. It's kind of like he started off the season, okay, I got my win. I really don't have to do much the rest of this season. But racing here at Pocono. And one other thing that I want to tell people to do too is make sure you are going on Twitter and watching what these drivers say and see what they have to say about the track, about themselves. But also they also talk about who they think is the faster cars in the garage, and make sure you pay attention to that. But to get back at the fact at hand here, I would definitely, it would be between Denny Hamlin or Kurt Busch. I would go either way. But I would have more of a preference with going with Kurt Busch just because of the place differential aspect, and he has a chance to win as well. So,
yeah, I mean, dude, and you can even go down to Chase Elliott, as we said, if you have him being a runner as someone that's going to contend for the win. Essentially, the way NASCAR DFS breaks down is like you have to make decisions, and the only way to do that when you use the track history and the data and the analysis that you have is that you have to have a race vision. Right, you have to have, what do I see happening in this race, and you just have to go with that. And that's how you end up making the better GPP lineups, in my opinion, is when you have a vision of what the race actually looks like. So you want to let's go ahead and lock Kurt Busch on this team. I like that. Leaves us with $600 left over. And that pretty much rounds up our show, kids. And with that, I'll let Liehr and I say our goodbyes, and we'll send you out with another, until next week, kids. Let's make some money. Liehr, give us your goodbyes.
All right, everybody. Another great week for the show. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Appreciate the comments and the likes that you guys do on our YouTube page. Also, don't forget to go check out fantasydonks.com to get all your info for the fantasy NASCAR as well. But there's also other sports on there too for football's coming up. So don't forget about that to go there for that information. But I'm looking forward to this race, man. I love Pocono. Mm-hmm. There's no other track like it. My boy's on the pole. It's just there's not very many situations where you get a lot of positives like this, and I can't wait for Sunday to get here. And I'm crossing my fingers that we get a race this Sunday, and hoping that I don't have to record it and watch it later on Monday night. But yeah. Good luck to everybody out there.
All right, guys. I want to say goodbye, and I just want to tell Liehr he kind of sort of stole my super sneaky pick that I was going to give you bonus on the goodbye for those of you that ran with us the whole way. The FedEx Denny Hamlin car looks really sexy this week as well. You know how much I love the JGR cars. Definitely don't leave him off the list. Remember, guys, we do this show for our love of NASCAR and to share that love of NASCAR and daily fantasy sports with you. Let's win some money this week, and hopefully I'm winning more money than you, but hopefully we're all winning money together. Have a great one, guys. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. We're out there social media-wise. Have a great one.
Have a great weekend, everybody.